This is a LEGO Christmas tree. I know it's out of season, but that's besides the point. And in this video, I'll be showing you exactly what went into creating this work of art, as well as some of the struggles I encountered while designing it. So hopefully by the end of this video, you will have learned just a little bit more about LEGO set design on a budget. But before we begin, we must go back before all of this started. Okay, not that far. So, a few months back, capping off the year of 2023, I created a LEGO Christmas special titled A Merry Mashup, which by the way, if you haven't seen that yet, I highly recommend checking it out, despite the fact that it's out of season. My first initial thoughts for this film were to have all these characters come together and build a Christmas tree, which in hindsight sounds like a decent idea, but let's just say there were some beforehand complications. First off, at the time of making this film, I had never built such a complex and intricate tree before, so half the time I didn't even know what I was doing. How do I do this? Usually when I tackle new builds, like this one, I kind of figure things out as I go. But what made this so much harder of a building process was the lack of pieces. This was a massive problem I needed to work through. And if you find yourself in the same situation, I'd recommend coming up with ideas based on what kind of pieces you have in your collection. And after some thinking of my own, I had a solid idea and got straight to building, which leads us right into our next part. Now that I'm done filling you in on all of that information, let's take a look and see what goes on inside of this cute little Christmas tree. It's not little, is it? Things are about to get very analytical here, so just bear with me. Let's start with probably the most important part, the foundation. Every Christmas tree needs a base, but that's not what's important here, because this LEGO Technic beam in the middle is what's keeping this thing from literally falling apart. It also serves as the rod that keeps all three layers neatly stacked in order. Speaking of which, the first layer is arguably one of the most important parts of this Christmas tree, because this is what starts the defined general shape that all Christmas trees seem to share. The second layer continues creating that silhouette, as well as adding a lot of density to the tree. But there was one problem with this. In order to continue the slope upward, I had to use these like slanted pieces. I don't even know what they're called, actually. 1x2 hinge. Oh, that makes sense. But the problem with using those is it left a pretty significant gap at each corner of the tree. So, I created these wedge pieces that fit in each corner of the second layer, closing off those gaps. Yes, they're loose, and they're not very conventional, but it works, and that's the important part. There's not a whole lot I can say about the third layer, it just finishes off the look of the tree. But this is a Christmas tree, so it needs ornaments. I knew for this I was going to use translucent studs in various colors. But the problem was, I didn't really have anywhere to hang them, so I kinda just put them where I could on the sides of the tree, and it turned out pretty well. And of course, we can't forget about the star at the very top of the Christmas tree. Now, we are done with the analysis portion of this video. And I'm hoping I did that in a way that made sense, because believe it or not, building Legos gets complicated sometimes. Okay, what's next in the script? Right. Despite my success on creating a decent looking Christmas tree, there are still a couple of flaws that unfortunately snuck their way into the final product. Is snuck a word? Snuck is a word. Of course it is, I knew that. Let's go over some of those flaws. Do you guys remember that lack of pieces issue earlier? Well, that never went away. And even though I sort of resolved that issue, I still had to use some substitute pieces throughout the build. The pieces I chose were obviously different colors, which is very annoying, but luckily they blend in super well with the rest of the tree. Another flaw I wanted to discuss was this thing's structural stability. Despite the careful consideration that went into the design of this thing, there are still few pieces that enjoy falling off. And there's not a lot you can do about this besides being careful. But besides all that, this is still a really solid tree considering what I had to work with. Which leads us into our Bible verse. In Hebrews chapter 13 verse 5, it is written, "Keep your lives free from the love of money, and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" Like many others, money has been a struggle in my life, but it doesn't have to be all bad. Because through this, we can learn to love and cherish what God has already given us, as well as strengthening our creativity by using what we have. So if there's one thing you take away from this video, let it be this. Be content with what you have, because God will never leave you. Darn it. So, we are finally done talking about the Christmas tree. But before we move on, let's talk about a couple of other builds used in the Christmas special. First, we have the couch. Now, as uncomfortable as this looks, this works as a set piece for animating. Plus, you can actually fit 2 people on it. And now, we have the table. From looking at it, it's kind of in the style of a banquet table, as well as it being a perfect place to set your drinks on. Or literally anything else. Well, that's all I have for you today. If you've enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me make more of these things. And also, if you're interested in reading the Word of God, you can, well, read a Bible obviously. Or alternatively, you can visit this website called Bible Gateway. It's free and it's easy to use. Just search up what book, chapter, and/or verse you want to read. The link will be in the description below. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and God bless you all.